Afternoon all, welcome to a beautifully sunny Sunday morning in Norwich. I'm Connor Southwell. This is your PinkUn Matchday vlog. Norwich City of course hosting Arsenal today, who this week decided to part company with Unai Emery, so that means Gunners legend Freddie Ljungberg is going to be in the dugout for them. And Norwich really are looking to build on that 3 points they gained at Goodison Park last week with a really adept Premier League performance, to be completely honest. Of course, a lot of advent calendars opening today, with it marking the beginning of December. Norwich City will be hoping that behind their door they can find a point or three. Key really, as Daniel Farke alluded to yesterday, is maintaining that momentum, I think, for me. Of course, you win a game, and in the Premier League that's difficult to do, really difficult to do. And Norwich now need to find it within themselves to produce that performance on a more consistent basis. And if they do that, then there's no reason why they can't achieve their Premier League aspirations this season. A few of the along-come Norwich folks setting up the flags, but Carrow Road is looking resplendent. Hopefully that sunshine stays. Team news of Norwich City out. Key line in terms of Norwich City is one change. Ibrahim Mamadou coming in for Alex Tettey, who of course is away on family reasons, because of family reasons today. Rather, the bench has a very similar feel to last week. Emi Buendia still on it. Jamal Lewis comes back after a knee injury as well, which means Sam Byram keeps his place in the 11 after a very good performance last week. And then the Arsenal team as well, Mustafi and David Luiz is the centre-back pairing in there. Reliably told that Mustafi hasn't started a game since the last game of last season, so a big vote of confidence in him from Freddie Ljungberg, as I've been told his name is pronounced in the Facebook Live that I've just done to greet the team news. Looking on the bench, plenty of quality. Socrates, of course, being at Borussia Dortmund, someone Daniel Farke will know well. Lucas Torreira, an industrious midfielder. Nicolas Pepe, of course, signed for big money in the summer. Sacco as well, who's been lighting up the Premier League. So interesting team news from both sides. Again, we don't really know what we're going to see from Arsenal today, because Ljungberg is going to come here having only really had 2 days to leave any sort of stamp, and given yesterday would have been a travel day, and today obviously would have been prep for the game. And of course Emery did pretty much all of the preparation for this game in terms of Arsenal, so whether that is the team that he would have picked anyway, I suppose remains to be seen. I'm just watching the Arsenal operators come out of the tunnel to start their warm-ups here. Subsequently more chilly now. It was quite warm in that press room downstairs, which is why you didn't hear too much from me, but going to be interesting today to see how Norwich City approach this, given how they played last weekend, and if they can apply themselves with the same consistency and the same quality we saw last week, then they have a real opportunity here to assert themselves onto an Arsenal team who always feel like they're a little bit in crisis. Half time here at Carrow Road. VAR, it's good fun, isn't it? I have to say, before we say anything, VAR, big hand in Arsenal's equalising goal. Of course, Christoph Zimmermann handling the ball. Arsenal rightly getting awarded a penalty through VAR. First attempt, Aubameyang steps up, Krul saves, and then we go back to VAR in terms of encroachment. And for me, if we're making decisions like that with VAR, then and having the delay we had in this stadium and having the frustration we had in this stadium, you have to question the bigger picture and ask yourself if VAR is worth it. Ultimately, Arsenal did equalise. Norwich did well to get their head back in the game, but realistically, Norwich have played really well that first half, defended in a really low, compact block. Perhaps gave Arsenal a little bit too much space at times to assert themselves, but on the counter-attack and posed the threat. Kenny McLean has been brilliant in midfield in terms of winning turnovers and threading the ball through to one of the front three essentially. Hernandez down this left has caused major problems for Arsenal. Both goals have involved McLean and Hernandez actually in different ways. The first one, Timu Pukki hits the flex off. I think it was Mustafi past Leno into the back of the net. The second one, McLean wins the ball inside Norwich's half. Lovely pass, sort of inside the fullback. Hernandez runs onto it. And the beauty in terms of Campbell's finish is really his awareness, because he just hangs outside the box for a moment, works a pocket of space, and as soon as he gets the ball, knows exactly what he's going to do, collects it and strokes it into the bottom right hand corner. Brilliant finish, really entertaining first half. Whether that's for the right or wrong reasons, I'll let you decide, but Norwich City are halfway to what would be a fantastic victory here. But we know Arsenal's quality, we know what they're capable of. Aubameyang has caused Byron problems, particularly for the opening 25 minutes or so. I think ultimately we're going to end up talking about that encroachment decision. And if you look at it, there are players in the box. Is it drastic? No, but they are in the box, so I'm sure the referees will point towards the correct decision eventually being reached. But in terms of enjoyment and in terms of impacting the game, to me, both of those things, it's just not right in its current form. I think that's fair to say. If you go back to the Dan James penalty that was given at Carrow Road against Manchester United, set the bar fairly low for VAR. Frustration, I'm talking in terms of in-stadium supporters, in-stadium fans are really frustrated with the system. The chants are clear, they're audible, and the delays are far too long at the moment. Unless they can iron out a system and communicate it properly, and whether that's miking up the ref, who knows. But it's a shame that VAR is going to dominate discussion of that first half in what's been actually a fairly good game of football. Join me at Carrow Road in the aftermath of another Norwich City game where they haven't been beaten, so we're making progress on that end at least. Of course, ending here at a very chilly now Carrow Road 2-2. What an epic encounter that was! Such a pulsating game of football, a very watchable game of football, and a game where Norwich City, I felt, displayed plenty of heart and plenty of character in the defensive phases, and also connected that with a threat on the counter-attack. And realistically, this is a game that many of the supporters who occupied these stands behind me, around me, the one I'm in at the moment, left feeling rather disappointed that they probably didn't get all 3 points. And okay, either side probably could have nicked it, and a draw was probably reflective of the game as a whole. But Norwich City had a host of opportunities after Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang equalised in the second half, and they'll probably be kicking themselves that they didn't win it and they didn't nick it. And that speaks volumes, I think, about where they've come in the last 2 weeks. And considering so many wrote them off 2 weeks ago, they were sitting bottom of the Premier League, going into an international break where there was panic in these parts, I felt, and there was a little bit of dismay, and probably quite a few who were disheartened. But today they were more competitive, they were difficult to play against, they defended resolutely in a low compact block, and I wouldn't necessarily say it's the best performance I've seen from Norwich City this season by any scale of the imagination, but they were competitive and they went toe-to-toe with a side who, okay, regardless of their current standings and their current situation, are a top side with top talent. And okay, we can stand here and discuss the ramifications of that VAR decision and whether it was correct, and the nature of it. And the reality is, had Max Aarons not have touched the ball, then that penalty save wouldn't even have been checked for encroachment. So I suppose there's frustration on that part as well, and the process of it was ludicrous, to be quite frank. And whether it reached the right decision or not is kind of irrelevant, given that the angst in these parts, and of course for Arsenal, they will evidently say it was the right decision and it was important to get, but it was difficult, I felt. And Norwich City did well to reclaim themselves after that, because it could have easily swayed the other way and they could have lost their heads and it could have become a bit of an arm wrestle. But they didn't allow that. They continued to play football. The second half was frenetic. Neither side really imposed themselves with the same degree of dominance that I felt Arsenal did in the early stages of the first half. Norwich had much more of possession in the second, for sure, but there was a freneticness throughout the different passages of play that we saw all evening, and neither side really, I don't think, grasped that the second half with real intent. Although if one side edged it, you'd probably say it was Norwich, given the opportunities they squandered. Kenny McLean, okay, stopped superbly by a wonderful save from Leno. Timu Pukki had a shot saved as well, and then Todd Cantwell, I think, just clipped the outside of the post. So it could have been different, and we could have been talking about a Norwich City win today, but the fact we're even doing that, I think, speaks volumes about their performance. And look, we know Norwich are a side that are going to concede goals. They're a side who are going to be difficult to watch in defensive situations at times, but they're exciting. And when they play like that they did today, and they played off the cuff, and they executed a game plan efficiently, they looked decent, and they matched Arsenal for lengthy periods in that game. And it's difficult because on one hand, like I say, there was disappointment that they didn't win it, and equally there's probably a bit of relief that they didn't lose it, because had they have done that, then the momentum that they built up and put in the bank from last week would have completely evaporated as well, ahead of what is now a crucial week. And I was kind of saying in the build-ups to this match, if Norwich could get through this with either a point or 3, then they travel to St Mary's on Wednesday night with real confidence that actually they can win there. And if they do get or not lose there rather, and if they do get another positive result, then it just keeps them ticking along and it keeps them in touch with those above them. And as I record this, Everton and Aston Villa are playing as we speak, but 2 favourable results there, and the outlook for this season could change once again. So it is it's an interesting situation at the moment for Norwich, because it just feels like optimism has been injected back into the side. And you may be able to see Timu Pukki just wandering across the pitch there. He was really pleased for him that he ended his 8-match run without a goal today, and deserved it as well. I mean, took a deflection, but the fact the Arsenal centre-backs dropped off was a little bit bizarre. But yeah, let's speak about Arsenal a minute. Obviously, their first game under Freddie Ljungberg, or Ljungberg as I'm told it's pronounced in Sweden. And I didn't feel it offered too much variation from what I would have anticipated under an Unai Emery side. They certainly had a bit more energy. They started the game very well. Didn't make that count necessarily though. I mean, Tim Krul made one good save from Lacazette probably. And to be fair, there was some debate I saw on social media regarding Norwich City's midfield in the first half, and I actually felt Ibrahim Amadou had quite a slow start to the game. Obviously, this is his first game starting in defensive midfield, so perhaps that's understandable to a degree. But certainly the second half of the first half, Norwich established control of that, and Amadou was a major protagonist. And okay, he made one error near the end where he nearly gifted Arsenal a win, but certainly made up for that with his block late on. This is a positive Norwich City display. I thought they played well. I thought they were good value for their draw, and I thought it was hard fought. And it showed a competitive edge that we haven't seen all too much this season, and that's a positive to take from this. In terms of a football match, it was wonderful to watch. A really, really good game to watch, and one where you probably say the outcome was fair. But equally, Norwich need these performances, and it's going to boil back down now to the word of consistency, and how they get that consistency and how they harness it into momentum. And today was almost it might build on their momentum. I suppose we'll find out at St Mary's realistically, but what it does is it keeps that momentum there and it keeps it alive. And it just seems to me like someone's flicked a switch and the confidence is there again. And certainly in those attacking phases, we're seeing players carry the ball that extra yard with the confidence. They're just stopping, making the right decision. I mean, Cantwell's goal today is the perfect example of that, when he just hung back just a yard or two just to receive the ball. He received it, his first touch was exquisite, and his finish was so confident. It was almost like when he was working his yard of space and he was waiting for the ball from Hernandez, he planned out in his head what he was going to do with it, and that's refreshing to see. And yeah, as I said, looking forward, I think this will be one that people say is an awesome result for Norwich, because it keeps them in touching distance with those sides above them, and equally just keeps them plodding along slowly. And that's all they need to do now in this period of games, is to see how many points they can get, particularly in the next 2 before a very, very tough run over the festive period. And it's just feels like a change in attitude, a change in approach, and a change in belief, I think, in these parts, particularly on the pitch. I think the players possess now much more belief. They possess a side which is much more balanced, much more competitive, and much better in defensive phases, because of how robust they are, because of how good their shape is, and because of how solid their wings are. You haven't got attacking midfielders almost tucking in and hoping to win the ball on the counter, thus creating 2v1s out wide. You've now actually got a midfielder and a fullback working in tandem, and it's really simplistic in terms of how they defend, but it's really influential in terms of maintaining that shape and maintaining those 2 banks of 4. So that's a positive element as well. But yeah, I think if I was a Norwich City supporter heading home tonight out of Carrow Road, I'd be pleased with that result. And again, a shade disappointed they didn't nick it, and they didn't win it with one of the 3 chances at the end. But ultimately, this is a win. I wish it was a win. It was a draw against an Arsenal side who possessed some wonderful talent and had the new manager bounce, I suppose, if you want. Although I think that's somewhat of a myth. But there you go. So it ended at Carrow Road here, 2-2, and now it's all aboard the train to St Mary's on Wednesday evening, where we hope Norwich City can extend their unbeaten run to 3 games and push up the Premier League table even further.